as far as creating safety as a parent, I'm really clear. I'm really clear with my son, for instance, that I get him, right? If you want to create relationship, which is one of the key ways to create safety, you can't have safety without relationship. I have to know that you and I are in this together and that we're going to figure this out. There's nothing worse for a child than to feel that they're on their own, which so many children, by the way, feel, because parents are wrapped up in their own pathology, their own ego, their own goals, their own, right? That a child can really be left a lot of times to feel like they're on their own in some ways. So to be in relationship means to be at their level, to be mirroring to them in a perfect mirror where you're really letting them know that you've heard exactly what they've just said and that you get them. That what you get about them is their innocence. You get that if they could do better, they would do better. You get that when their brain is in a stressed or traumatized place, a highly aroused or activated state, that they're not really in control of their actions and that they do end up hitting, biting, having a temper tantrum, clawing, doing all kinds of survival stuff. You'll see our babies get into their survival mode. Well, their amygdala is going like this and sending the message to their brain to be in that survival mode. That's not a conscious decision. That is in fractions of a second, the decision made by the amygdala saying, be in this place. There's a reason that you need to feel threatened right now. So our babies, our toddlers, our children go into these really ugly, animalistic places, right? And we shame them for it. We just have this tendency to really shame them for it, to I want to say abnormalize it. That's not really a word, but to really give them this message that it isn't normal, that there's something wrong with them, and get a hold of yourself and relax, calm down. We do all this really, really damaging stuff, as opposed to really normalizing it and saying, I get it. And I've been there too. And I know that when you feel threatened and scared, you can't control what you're doing. You go into this place. And so I know that if you could do better, you would do better. And my son, about a year ago, really did go through a stage of really viciously hurting other people. And in fact, he was seeking out the younger, smaller victim and really going after them, hitting, pushing, and when they would show tears over it, he actually delighted in their tears. Now, sounds like the making of a sociopath. So as a parent, freak out when you see something like this. But really, it just needed some attention. It just meant that he was struggling inside with something, and he needed to be in relationship with somebody about it, and he needed me down with him, mirroring what felt ugly inside, and he needed a leader to say, we're gonna figure this out, I'm here with you, and I know if you could do better, you would. And I just kept giving him that message that he was healthy and he was good. He was healthy and he was good, and that if he could do better, he would do better. I didn't shame him for it. I normalized it. And then I set up limits and boundaries. I set up consequences. I contained the energy. I completely reduced the little bit of media that he was being exposed to at the time. And I did actually start giving him some little time aways in his room when it was over a very serious matter, like hitting and hurting and delighting in it, that, he needed to be removed. And boy, did he hate those time aways. And it worked. And I mean, it worked in less than a week. The behavior was gone. It worked in less than a week. I just got on board with his caretakers, the people who helped me to really take care of him. And so we all got on, the same page. And so in less than a week, it was gone. And then, because he is quite a little precocious guy, I asked him, because I was getting calls, from clients and working on other cases where children were experiencing these same kind of behaviors, and parents were saying, oh my goodness, I think he's on his way to becoming a sociopath. And I said, oh, don't worry about it. Been there, done that, right? And I could share my experience. And what I did was, one time when I was on the phone, I had with someone who was asking for help in this department. My son was right there, and I said, Jules, maybe you'd like to share, what we did, right? I mean, he just loves that. I can't tell you what it means to him to be part of my work. He always wants to be part of my work. He likes to come in when I'm in session and visit my clients and see who's there and what they're doing, and he likes to be invited and, included. So I was including him, and he said, oh yes, Mama, you tell them those timeouts really helped. They really helped. And I said, you really didn't like those timeouts. He said, I really didn't like those timeouts, but they really helped. I think that turned things around, because he, had heard me saying things got turned around, So he was in that age of imitating, your exact phrases. And it was wonderful. Like, that's the kind of open dialogue we have. I'm in relationship with you. You're normal. I'm fallible. And I can lead you in the best way I can. And it's not always perfect, but we're in relationship. And that, I think really having those limits and boundaries and coming at it the way I did made him feel a lot safer. It really soothed that animal brain, because then all kinds of things. I mean, just recently the teacher said that somebody just took their fingernails and scratched his face from top to bottom. And what did he do? He just looked at them and went over to the teacher and said, so-and-so just scratched my face. And the teacher was so excited to be able to say to me, he does not go into that, he's not easily activated back into that animal zone anymore. He's more regulated, more in the window of tolerance, so that something like that can happen to him now, and he's got the reserve in his nervous system to tolerate it better, right? So, but we did all kinds of things, to ground him. We go out to the garden all the time. He needs to be in nature. We need to find the bugs, and certainly turn media off. There are ways to help soothe that animal brain, right? We need to get real about the effects of certain images and games that they play, whether it's video games or, shows that they watch. There is a direct link. We know now how the brain develops, and when they're exposed to violent images, those neurons in the brain fire and find each other and form neural connections for violence. And the more they see it, right? Because when you visualize something, the neurons in your brain fire as though you're actually having the experience. That's the power of visualization. There's a famous visualization study where there's three groups of people. One group is encouraged to go into a basketball court and take free throw shots, practice their free throw shots. Another group is told to do nothing at all, a control group. And another group is told to not go into a basketball court, but to sit wherever they are, like in this chair, and imagine themselves taking free throw shots. And there is actually no difference at the end of this. Those who actually practiced versus those who visualized themselves practicing, there's no difference in how well they throw their free throw. I'm saying that correctly. No difference between those groups. So what that tells us is that visualizing themselves practicing fires neurons in the brain to the muscle groups, so that they're actually having the experience, even though they're not actually having the experience. So we know that that's the power of media. You see, the point being that images create visualizations, create the firing of neurons, create neural connections, and the deeper neural connections become, the more automatic a behavior becomes. So they just tend to behave more violently if they're always being exposed to and thereby visualizing violence, right? So we have to get real about that in terms of creating safety.